Hey guys, tonight we're curling up somewhere, a little unexpected. The air smells like scorched crust, a hint of rosemary. Maybe someone's dropped onion. The stars hang low, just beyond the smoke holes, and the world is finally quiet because you're not outside anymore, not trudging the muddy streets, not hiding from the church bells, not sneaking extra turnips from the market cart. No, you're somewhere warmer, somewhere ancient. You're inside a medieval bread oven. Yes, you are the oven now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm always amazed how far this little sleepy corner of history travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're built into the wall of a stone bakery. You've got a brick spine and a throat blackened by centuries of stories. They carved you when the village was still guessing at its own name, and now you hum gently. The day's final fire has faded, but your belly's still warm, radiating through the cobbled floor. Slow, steady heat, like a sigh stretched across hours. Outside, the town of Birchwick sleeps. At least, most of it. You hear the hooves of a horse carrying a drunk home. A baby cries, then stops. Someone has offered a breast or a lullaby. The world is dark now, except for you, because you're glowing. Just barely. A little ember under the skin. A blush of heat beneath old stone. You were fed all day, loaves upon loaves, hands patting you like a beast, tossing flour-dusted prayers into your mouth. And you took them in. You cradled their doughy hopes and dreams in fire and smoke. You made them into sustenance, into crust and life, and the smell that makes grown men whimper. Now, with the bakers gone, your thoughts stretch out. They go back in time, farther than any candle would dare flicker, to when the monks first shaped you, singing as they stacked your bricks, chanting Latin as they aligned your arch, to when a rat named Godric made a nest near your base and survived 5 winters off stolen grain, to when the plague came and bread still rose. You don't forget things. You remember every soot-marked hand, every loaf pressed too hard, every time someone wept while baking, hoping the bread would taste like forgiveness. Tonight, you remember Marjorie. She was the baker's daughter. Slight with wrists like cinnamon sticks, she used to hum nonsense tunes and braid scraps of dough into hearts when no one was looking. She was the first to whisper secrets into your cracks. She said she dreamed of a man who'd smell like cinnamon and say nothing at all. You remember that. You also remember the night her dough caught fire and she blamed the oven cat. You didn't tell. You've held more secrets than most priests. Even now, some of those secrets smolder in your belly. You're not just a tool. You're a temple, a witness, a furnace of memory. And just outside, beneath the flower-swept table, something stirs. Not a rat, not this time. A loaf, a crusty golden little thing, left behind by accident. It waddles toward your still warm mouth. Not quite alive. Not quite. Not. You sigh. If ovens could sigh. Another night begins, and bread walks again. There's a low rustle near your flue. At first it sounds like wind, or maybe a stray bit of parchment sliding across the soot. But you've been in oven too long to mistake it. It's them, the flower dancers. They arrive when the bakery's stillness hits that perfect pitch, after the last bootstep, after the final sigh from the bannock, when the smoke has long since risen and only warmth lingers like perfume. They twirl in through the cracks, unseen to humans, weightless and wild. They smell like yeast and cinnamon and rebellion. Some say they're the souls of spilled flour. Others, runaway recipes. There's even a legend you once heard, overheard, really, from a monk baker in 1284, who claimed they were the whisperings of forgotten bread gods. You've never asked. They don't speak in words. They flutter. They glide across your walls and flicker through your embers, chasing the warmth like moths. When they dance, the ashes stir, not from breeze, but from memory. One of them lands gently atop the rye loaf's crust. He stiffens. She kneads softly with invisible feet, pressing down ever so slightly, as if reminding him that he is bread and he is enough. The barley roll pretends not to watch, but you feel it, that twitch of curiosity beneath his stale indifference. Another flower dancer circles your arch, tracing loops with glowing footsteps. Her path forms the shape of a baker's, mark once used by a woman in the 9th century. You remember that woman, fierce, loud, hands like stone. She once punched a priest who claimed bread shouldn't be salted. The dancer spins the cymbal again, slower this time, and something old within your stones hums in agreement. The flower dancers don't stay long. They never do. But for a moment, they pull the oven and everything in it into something bigger. A waltz across time, a soft rebellion against forgetting. When they vanish, the temperature dips just slightly. The rye loaf exhales. I think one of them kissed me, he murmurs. The barley roll scoffs. That was probably steam, but you know better, because every time they come, your soot sings a little song you didn't know you still remembered, of a memory from long ago, when you were newly built, newly fired, and someone, a girl named Elspeth, lit your first flame and whispered, "Keep it safe." You did, and you still do. The loaves settle again, changed somehow, more tender, more aware. Even the crusty barley roll edges, closer to the warmth just a bit. Not enough to admit anything, of course, but enough to mean something. Outside, the night deepens. A storm begins far away, too distant to hear yet. But your stones sense the pressure change. You'll need to hold your warmth longer tonight. The cold likes to sneak in when no one's watching. But you're always watching, always remembering, and now you carry the ghostly footprints of dancers who weigh less than hope, but leave more behind than time. The rye loaf is still awake. He's staring at your ceiling now, his crust slightly darker from the gentle roast you offered. The crack in his side, his hero's scar, as he calls it, has stopped steaming, but his thoughts still bubbling. Do you think, he says, not to anyone in particular, that flour remembers where it came from? The bannock blinks slowly. The barley roll groans. But you listen, because questions like that are the kind that bake slowly. They need space, silence, and a patient heat. I mean, the rye continues. There's a field, right? A patch of earth somewhere. Some farmer, with cracked knuckles, bent over and planted the grain. Maybe he sang. Maybe he swore. Maybe, maybe I came from that. He taps his heel on the hearthstone. Maybe I was meant to become something else. A festival bread, a royal banquet bun, a loaf of legend. The barley roll mutters, you were meant to be dipped in lentil stew and forgotten by Tuesday. Silence. Then a muffled giggle from the bannock. You chuckle too, quietly, deep in your brick belly. Not to mock, but to echo the music of loaves, being loaves. Still, there's something about the rye's question. You remember flour, so much flour, dusting aprons, coating eyelashes, puffing up in little clouds when someone laughed too hard while kneading. Flour does seem to carry echoes of harvests, of hands, of hunger. Sometimes, when the wind hits your chimney just right, you could swear it smells like distant wheat fields, even though it's midwinter and the only thing outside is frost. So maybe the rye isn't wrong. Maybe every loaf holds a hint of its roots. The bannock, moved by some ancient, doughy instinct, scoots closer to the rye. I was once part of a solstice cake, he whispers, with honey and a single walnut. They both stare at him. You never said, says the rye. No one asked, says the bannock, shrugging. You feel it again. Heat rising, not from flame, but from something softer. Connection, like steam, from a shared loaf in cold hands. Then, tap, tap, tap. The sound comes from behind your soot-curtained wall. The rye tenses. What was that? You know. You always know. It's the crust lore gathering. Every few nights, the oldest crumbs, bits of crust, long wedged into corners, stuck under bricks, clinging to the shadow of long-eaten loaves, they shuffle out, quiet, dry, reverent. They meet where your heat is weakest, where even the fire dares not flicker, and they talk, not in words, in crumbles, tiny shifts, soft skitters, a secret language of disintegration. Tonight, they're talking about the flower dancers, about how one left behind a sparkle on the bannock's crown, about how maybe, just maybe, the dancers come from the sky when the moon is round and the bread is brave. The rye listens closely. The bannock leans in. Even the barley roll pretends to be asleep, but you can tell he's hanging on every crumble. And you keep it warm. This meeting of the half-eaten, the hopeful, and the barely baked. You hold them all, because that's what you do. You're the hearth, the oven, the heart of it all. There's a shift in the air. One of those moments when the silence gets thicker, like flour in soup. You know what's coming before the others do. Crust lore hour. The oldest pieces of bread, so old they barely remember their shape, begin to stir. These aren't fresh loaves, or day-olds with glossy crusts and opinions. These are the ancients, dry, sunken, half-crumbled into themselves, but sharper than a sickle in the right light. One of them, an edge flake from a ceremonial oat round, baked in 1123, clicks softly as it moves. He's called Sir Cranny. He's the sort of crust that everyone respects and no one understands. Gather round. He crackles, his voice like parchment being stepped on. The rye loaf gulps. The barley roll adjusts himself, trying to look less interested. Sir Cranny coughs, which is mostly just a tiny pile of himself falling to the floor, and begins. There was a time, he says, when the loaves were many, the fire was sacred, and no one dared poke the rising dough. The barley roll scoffs. This again, Cranny ignores him. We were shaped by hands who wore rings of copper and sang to the yeast. The bannock gasps. Sang? Aye, Cranny says, his whole form creaking with the effort. Each region had its song. In the north, they hummed to sourdough. In the west, they told tales to barley. And in the east, the east, they whispered riddles into rye. The rye loaf straightens proudly. You remember those songs, not because you heard them, but because they changed the way dough moved. Slower, more intentional. The heat responded differently, gentler at the edges, sharper in the center. Of course, Cranny says, not all loaves were worthy of the oven. The bannock leans in nervously. There were some who rose too fast, who got ambitious, who believed they were meant to be cakes. Cakes, the rye whispers, horrified. Cakes, Cranny says gravely. Sweet, fluffy, icing-smeared traitors. The group falls into shocked silence. You want to laugh. You remember cakes. They were nice enough, but the drama between them and the breads, especially during festival season, was enough to make your chimney weep. Sir Cranny continues. But the worst of all, he says slowly, were the crust chippers. Gasps. The bannock almost faints. They were the ones who peeled. A full-bodied shiver runs through the oven. To peel a crust, voluntarily, was to reject one's identity, to say, I'm not bread, I'm soup topping. They came in the night, Cranny rasps, with tiny butter knives and shame. The rye loaf swallows hard. Do they still exist? Cranny shrinks further into himself. No one knows. But if they do, they'd wait for a warm oven, a quiet night, and loaves brave enough to dream. A flicker of silence follows. Then the barley roll says, That's the dumbest story I've ever heard. Cranny coughs again and rolls under the ash bin. The flour dancers don't return. The loaves shift uncomfortably. You give a comforting rise of heat, just a touch, enough to settle nerves and toast the rye's underside a little more. Do you think I'd ever get chipped? The rye asks, suddenly vulnerable. The bannock moves closer. Not if I can help it. Even the barley roll says nothing, which, coming from him, is basically affection. Outside, the wind begins to howl. The first hints of rain tap against the bakery shutters. Inside, though, you're calm, you're steady, and while the crust lore fades back into crumbs and memory, you keep their stories warm, where no knife, no cold, no peeling could ever reach. A low creak stretches across the bakery floor. It's not the wind, nor the shutters, not even a stray mouse with ambition. It's the rye. He's standing, which, to be clear, is impressive, considering he has no legs, bones, or real idea how to balance on uneven hearthstone. But there he is, rocking slightly, crusty heels braced, toasted edge forward. I've made a decision, he declares. The bannock blinks, confused. The barley roll mutters something about drama queens. But you listen. because you've felt this before. That particular kind of heat that rises from below when something absurd is about to become important. I'm leaving, the rye says. I've been warmed. I've been toasted. I've been kissed by flower ghosts. And I refuse to go moldy on a shelf. The barley roll snorts. Where exactly will you go, you half-risen philosophical bun? I don't know, the rye admits. But I will find the singing flame. You hum gently at that, because yes, there was a legend. You remember whispers from a Moorish baker long ago about an oven buried in the mountains of Al-Andalus. It didn't just bake bread, it sang lullabies. Its flames hummed harmonies. They said loaves came out of it, not just warm, but wise. Of course, no one ever found it again, mostly because, as the saying goes, bread has a hard time crossing borders. But tonight, you feel something shift, not just in the rye, but in the room itself. The bannock scoots forward. I mean, if you're going, you'll need a scout. I'm small, crumby, good for recon. The rye beams, sort of, as much as a loaf can beam without facial features. I'm in, says the bannock. They both look to the barley roll. He rolls away slightly, then stops, groans, and rolls back. Fine, he mutters. But if I start getting soggy, I'm turning around. You swell with warmth. They're really going to do it. Well, not tonight, of course. Right now, they're still figuring out how to hop off your hearth without cracking. But that doesn't matter. It's the decision that counts. A quest, a journey, a fellowship of crumbs. They huddle together now, whispering strategy. You catch fragments. Travel by sack? No. Too many mice. What about hitching a ride in a miller's wagon? Dangerous. Too many questions. They're planning with all the intensity of nights before battle. If the nights were 12-ounce baked goods, with dreams larger than the shelf life of a fig. Meanwhile, the burnt crumb in your deepest crack hums softly, an ancient lullaby, barely audible, older than most kingdoms. Outside, rain begins to fall, fat, sleepy drops, smacking gently against the windows like polite knocks. Inside, you glow just a bit brighter, because something's coming. Adventure, movement, hope, not for you. You are an oven. You stay. But these loaves, they'll go where you cannot. They'll carry the warmth of your hearth into the wide, crumb-crumbling world. And perhaps, just perhaps, they'll find what you've only ever dreamed about in your quietest embers, a place where fire sings. It takes the trio the better part of an hour to figure out how to dismount. Turns out, for loaves of bread, movement is less walking and more timid hopping, followed by awkward tilting. The rye tries first, managing a bold pivot and a short slide down the slope of the hearth. He lands with a satisfying thud and a small puff of flour. Ow, he says proudly. The bannock rolls down after him, a sort of doughy tumble, and somehow ends up upright. The barley roll. He falls sideways, curses under his breath, then pretends it was intentional. You watch, warmth rising in your core. Not hot enough to burn, just warm enough to feel like pride. This is what you've always known. Bread needs a journey. They wobble toward the edge of the bakery, past the bucket of spoiled yeast, past the sack of discarded crusts, toward the mouse-sized crack beneath the rear door. This, of course, presents a problem. Loaves are not known for their flexibility. The rye eyes it. We need to squeeze. You mean crumble, mutters the barley roll. The bannock pokes it with his side. Maybe if we flatten. No flattening, says the rye. We're adventurers, heroes. We do not pancake ourselves. I am basically a pancake, whispers the bannock. You consider intervening. Just a slight exhale of warmth might loosen the wall frame, make the gap a bit friendlier. But no, this is their challenge. You stay still. Then, footsteps. Everyone freezes. It's Martha, the night baker. You know her well. She's young, quiet, always wears socks with little embroidered plums. She comes in late sometimes, just to check the oven's belly. She whispers to the fire like it's a friend. Tonight, she's early. Or maybe the loaves were late. She opens the back door. The gap widens. Light spills in from the moon, soft and silvery. The loaves stare. The rye inches forward. Now, the bannock follows, whispering plum socks. Like a prayer. Even the barley roll doesn't argue. And just like that, they're out. Into the night. Into the mud. Into the wild. You can't follow. Your bricks and soot and memory. But you feel the moment stretch through your stones. A whisper of change. And Martha, she peers into your mouth, confused. Didn't we have more loaves? You hum, innocently. She shrugs, tosses a few logs into your belly, and lights the morning fire. Outside, under a cabbage cart, 3 loaves catch their breath. The rye stares at the road. The bannock shivers in the dew. The barley roll complains about slugs, but they're out. They've begun, and somewhere far away, maybe over the next hill, or the one after that, there's a fire that sings. They're going to find it, or they'll get eaten by ducks trying. They don't make it far before the mud becomes a problem. The rye, noble and crusty as ever, tries to march, but he sinks, slowly, with the dignity of an anchor-shaped tea cake. The bannock spins in a circle, his round edges no match for the soft earth. His movement could best be described as soggy spiraling. The barley roll just stands still and mutters, "I told you so," every 30 seconds. You, back in the bakery, can feel the night cooling. Your stones settle around the ashes of the previous fire. Still warm, still watching. They press onward. The first creature they meet is a toad. Enormous, silent, mildly unimpressed. He stares at them from beneath a curled leaf. "Greetings," says the rye, ever polite. The toad licks his own eye. "Very well," says the rye. "That went better than expected." The barley roll grunts. Let's hope the ducks are as restrained. They huddle beneath a cabbage cart until the morning light starts to sneak into the sky. Now comes their first real decision, where to go. To the north, the road leads to the market, bustling, full of carts, noisy humans, and potential to be mistaken for free samples. To the south, a quiet slope leads toward the old mill road, forgotten, crumbling, but rumored to house an oven that never fully cooled. The rye stares southward. That way, the bannock nods. Less ducks? The barley roll doesn't argue this time, and so they roll, hop, and inch their way down the slope. They pass a worm who offers cryptic advice. They meet a beetle who insists he once dated a muffin. They find a pebble shaped like a heart and keep it for luck. And as the first sunlight touches the rim of the hill, they spot it, a ruin, half a wall, a collapsed roof, and right at the center, a fire pit, blackened, buried, barely a memory. But they feel it, even from this distance. It's not heat, it's familiarity. The rye speaks softly. She was here. They all know who he means. The singing flame. It's not burning now, but something once lived here. They move closer. The bannock whispers, "There's ash on the stones." The barley roll sighs. No singing oven would burn this cold. But then, a spark, just one, a single ember curls up from the center stone, flutters, and winks at them before vanishing. The rye steps forward. We start here. You, miles away, hum in your sleep, because somehow, even ovens dream. And tonight, your dream smells like distant embers, wild yeast, and the brave crust of a rye with a mission. The ruin is quiet, too quiet, if you ask the barley roll. He mutters about cursed hearths and ghost bakers who steal your raisins. The bannock, ever the optimist, rolls right into the old fire pit. It's shallow now, filled with soot, twigs, and the memories of meals long gone. But even he can feel it, the lingering warmth beneath the stone. The rye closes his eyes. There's still heat here, somewhere. You'd agree, if you could. From your bakery hearth, you feel that faint pulse too, like a sister flame breathing softly in her sleep. The trio gets to work, which is tricky, because none of them have arms. The rye uses his edge to nudge twigs into the pit. The bannock spins in circles until he rolls a dried leaf into place. The barley roll supervises aggressively, offering notes like, "That stick's too dry," and "You're smudging your crust." They try to spark a fire. No flint, no steel, just determination and the faint belief that bread, when truly committed, can do anything. Hours pass. Clouds drift. Birds laugh from trees. The bannock begins humming, a tune he barely remembers, something from his proofing days. The rhythm helps, soothing, warm, almost like the pit shivers, just once. Then, a crackle, tiny, a flicker, a flame. It's weak, shy, barely more than a whisper of light. But it's there. They freeze. Even the barley roll is silent. The flame wobbles. It curls in the air, forming the faintest shape. Like a note of music, you feel more than hear. The rye steps forward. Are you here? The flame dances once, then twice, then settles into a steady glow. The singing flame? Maybe, or maybe just a piece of her. An echo, a cousin flame. It doesn't matter. The ruin is warm now. The loaves gather around. The bannock hums louder. The rye closes his crumb eyes. The barley roll tries not to look impressed, but he edges closer anyway. And in your own hearth, miles away, you feel it too. Not jealousy, not longing, just pride. They made it. They found something that glows, that sings, that remembers. And though your fire still burns, stronger and brighter than ever, you let your stones cool just slightly for them. In honor, you are the past, But they are the crusty, determined, ridiculous future. Night falls over the ruin, but the new flame doesn't fade. It flickers gently, like it's breathing. Inhale, exhale, warmth, silence. The three loaves gather close, each radiating their own peculiar kind of awe. The bannock is the first to speak. Do we feed it? With what? Asks the barley roll. Breadcrumbs? Existential dread? The rye doesn't laugh. He's watching the flame like it's telling a story, in a language only crust can hear. We give it a name, he says. The flame pulses softly at this. I vote for Emberella, says the bannock brightly. The barley roll snorts. We're not naming it, like a horse at a village fair. How about Harthena? The bannock offers. No, says the rye. It's not ours to name. Not yet. The silence settles again. This time, not awkward, just reverent. They sleep, or the closest thing bread can do. You feel it too, in your own faraway hearth. That soft, humming connection, like two coals remembering they came from the same fire. In the morning, the loaves wake to bird song and dew. The flame is still there, smaller maybe, but no less proud. And surrounding the ruin, something's changed. Weeds have pulled back from the stone. Moss on the roof glows faintly. Even the old chimney coughs once, like clearing its throat after centuries. I think it likes us, the bannock says. It's responding, the rye agrees. But it needs fuel. The barley roll raises a metaphorical eyebrow. And just what kind of firewood do we think we're going to find? We're literally made of carbs. But the rye is already thinking. You can almost hear the heat turning behind his crust. What if we tell it stories? The bannock perks up. Like bedtime stories? No, says the rye. Like memory stories. He hops closer to the flame, takes a breath, which for bread involves very little lung. I was baked in a clay pan, passed down from a woman named Isella. She used to trace spiral patterns in the flour before baking. The flame flickers. She'd hum while kneading. Her brother was a miller. Her dog used to steal loaves. The flame curls upward, warmer now. The bannock hops in. I once had honey dripped on me accidentally, but it changed my whole perspective on sweetness. The barley roll hesitates, then grumbles, my batch was over-seasoned. No one talks about it, but too much fennel is a crime. The flame bursts for a moment. Joy? Laughter? Recognition? You aren't sure, but you recognize the pattern. This is not a regular flame. It feeds on memory, on story, on identity. A storytelling fire. The singing flame? Maybe she was never a who. Maybe she was always a what. The loaves don't know this, but they feel it. And they keep talking. For hours. Sharing every moment they remember. From flour sacks, to proofing benches, to last-minute raisins that shouldn't have been there, but were. And the flame? It grows. Just a little, but enough. The flame crackles again that night. Brighter now, more confident, like it finally believes in its own light. The rye sits closest, his crust glowing faintly amber in the warmth. He doesn't speak. Not yet. The stories are slowing down. They've told them all. The buttered betrayals, the flour fights, the bakery rumors. The one about the raisin that tried to lead a rebellion was especially popular. But now the silence feels different. It isn't empty, it's full, like the pause just before a loaf rises. I think, the bannock says, we should teach it to speak. The barley roll lifts a metaphorical brow. You want to teach fire to talk. It already listens. The bannock shrugs. Why not finish the conversation? The rye considers this, slowly, carefully, then nods. We start with names. They each offer one. The bannock suggests toasty. The barley roll grumbles something unintelligible that might have been crackle duchess. The rye says nothing at first. Then, gently, ember. The flame flickers, then echoes. Not a word. Exactly, but a pulse, a note, a soft syllable made of warmth. Ember, the bannock whispers, stunned. She likes it. She is it, says the rye. That night, they teach her everything they know. Not just stories, but feelings. The sting of first cooling, the joy of a perfect rise, the heartbreak of being left behind on a shelf. And Ember listens. She hums when they're funny. She pulses when they're proud. She dims gently when they're sad. Back in your own hearth, something stirs. It's subtle, just a shift in the coal bed, but you feel it. A tether, like the kind flames make when they remember they're all part of the same eternal heat. The loaves begin to glow, not literally, but you'd swear, if you had lips, that something inside them is kindling, a second rising, not of dough, but of purpose. Tomorrow, says the rye, we build her a home. The bannock claps. The barley roll rolls his eyes but doesn't argue. And the fire, she hums, low and steady, a lullaby for crust and memory alike. Dawn arrives like a slow puff of flour across the ruined stones. The fire, ember, is still burning, low but steady. She crackles once as the loaves wake, like a good morning stretch from a flame that finally trusts it's not alone. The rye is the first to stand. Always. We begin, he says, looking around the crumbled ruin with a baker's eye. The bannock bounces in place. What are we building? A hearth, the rye replies. A home she can grow in. The barley roll groans. With what materials? We're surrounded by weeds and irony, but he helps anyway. And so, the work begins. The loaves, in their round, crusty, slightly absurd way, become builders. They push pebbles. They stack old bricks. The bannock flings himself at tufts of moss to loosen them, like a doughy cannonball on a mission. The rye uses careful nudges to balance broken tiles atop one another. The barley roll? He's the project manager. Mostly stands around muttering things like, that's not regulation, or you'll warp the symmetry. By midday, they have something resembling a circle. It's uneven, wobbly, probably wouldn't pass inspection in a real village. But Ember flickers with pride. She likes it. The loaves sit around her again, covered in soot, exhausted, feeling more alive than they've ever been. She needs fuel, says the bannock suddenly. The others look at him. Not twigs, he says. Bakers. He's right. The flame isn't meant to stay hidden. She's memory and warmth and story. And she needs people, not just bread. We'll bring them here, the rye says. The bakers? The barley roll asks. The right ones, he clarifies. The ones who knead with their eyes closed. The ones who hum while they sift. You feel that. Back in your oven belly, deep within the bakery, you feel it like a spark behind your bricks. There are those bakers, few and far between, but real. You remember one, a girl with plum-embroidered socks. She won't believe us, says the bannock. She won't need to, says the rye. She'll feel it. The plan is simple. Return to town. Not to be eaten, not to be shelved, but to invite, to pass along the story of a flame that listens, a fire that remembers. The flame dances, casting long shadows, not of loaves, but of messengers. The return journey begins at twilight. It's a dangerous time for bread to travel. The owls are hungry, the dew is thick, and humans start stumbling home from taverns with less than loaf-friendly appetites. But the three of them move with a new purpose, not fugitives, not leftovers, messengers. The rye leads, as always, determined, slightly burnt in one corner, and thinking 3 steps ahead. The bannock rolls beside him, humming softly. He hums when he's nervous, or brave, or bored. It's all the same tune, really. The barley roll trails behind, muttering predictions of doom. If we make it back, he says, remind me to never leave a bakery again. The bannock spins. But then you wouldn't have met Ember. The barley roll pauses, then mutters, fine, remind me to leave once more, but never again after that. They creep through the forest, along the same path they'd taken days ago. But now the trees feel different, welcoming, almost curious, like the world itself knows they carry something sacred inside their crumb. As they near the village, they stop beneath the cabbage cart where they first found shelter. It still smells faintly of dirt and boiled vegetables, comforting in its own way. Lights flicker in windows, hearths glow, and from one small house near the bakery, you know the one, they see her, Martha, plum-socked, flower-streaked, singing quietly to herself as she stirs something in a bowl. The rye watches. He knows this part is delicate. They can't exactly knock, but they can be seen. So he hops forward, bold and brave, and stands directly in her path. She nearly steps on him, but stops, bends down, stares. Didn't I bake you last week? Rye doesn't respond. He simply sits still, noble, present. Martha frowns, lifts him gently, smells him. He smells faintly of soot and something else, ashes and stories. She cradles him like a question, then notices something caught on his crust. A fleck of moss. A spark, burn, a scent of wood smoke that doesn't belong to any oven she's ever used. What? And in that moment, something inside her stirs. She doesn't know what yet, but you do. Back in your bakery belly, you feel her heartbeat quicken. The first ember of wonder. The loaves have delivered their message. Now it's hers to follow. Martha holds the rye loaf a little too long. She doesn't mean to. Her hands just don't want to let go. She's staring at him, lips parted slightly, the way someone might stare at a faded photo that suddenly looks back. You feel her heartbeat from all the way across the village, thrumming gently through the soot beneath your floor. She smells the ash on the crust, not the kind from your fire. Something older, wilder, whispering. She turns to the door, slowly, like something's pulling her, not with a rope, but with memory. She grabs her cloak. She doesn't even put down the rye. She just whispers, "Let's see where you came from," and slips into the dusk. The bannock and barley roll are already halfway down the hill by the time they see her. The barley roll panics. It's her. She's holding the rye. We're doomed. She's not biting him, the bannock points out. The barley roll narrows his crumb. Yet, Martha stops at the edge of the path. The rye twitches in her hands. Just enough. She looks down at him, then up at the forest, and keeps walking, one slow step after another. She doesn't know where she's going, not really, but she knows why. Something inside her chest is glowing, something that's not hers, but was always meant to find her. It takes most of the night. She trips once, loses a shoe, laughs, for no good reason, and eventually she reaches the ruined hearth. The stones are still warm, the moss glows faintly, and ember, she flickers to life. The moment Martha steps into view, no flames, just a curl of light, a greeting. Martha freezes, then whispers, "You're real?" The fire pulses at once. Yes. She steps closer, sets the rye down. The bannock and barley roll up sheepishly. Martha just stares. And you, from your own distant hearth, hold your heat steady. This is what you were made for. Not just baking, but beckoning. Not just warming, but remembering. The flame rises, stronger now, brighter, and Martha kneels. Not because she has to, but because when you meet something sacred, even the most practical baker bends. The light wraps around her like a scarf made of memory. Ember glows, steady, golden, musical, in a way only warmth can be. The loaves gather around her again, but this time they aren't the center of the story. Martha is. She leans in, palms toward the flame, not to take, but to offer. "I don't know what you are," she says softly, "but I think I've been waiting for you." The rye loaf doesn't move. He doesn't have to. His mission is complete. The bannock hums. The barley roll mutters something about fire cults, but doesn't leave. The ruins don't feel ruined anymore. Just unfinished. Waiting. Martha breathes in. The scent hits her. Not smoke, not soot, but home. Like warmth from a childhood oven. Like the second the dough rises just right. Like the whisper of yeast waking up. She knows. This isn't an ordinary fire. This is memory. This is story. This is every baker who ever sang to their loaves. Every child who warmed their hands at a hearth and watched flames pretend to dance. Martha reaches into her satchel, pulls out a linen-wrapped bundle, unfolds it slowly. Inside, a small lump of dough, still sticky, still soft. She'd meant to bake it tomorrow, but something tells her it belongs here. She places it gently beside the fire, and ember responds. The flame leans in, a wisp curls forward, and ever so gently kisses the dough. There's no roar, no puff, no heat burst, just a soft glow like a lullaby. And you, miles away, feel it ripple through your stones. The connection. You are no longer alone. There's a new hearth now, alive, awake, and you are proud. Your flame flickers once, just enough to say goodbye, or maybe hello. Martha stays by the fire long into the night, She doesn't speak. She listens. The loaves settle. The rye closes his eyes. And somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the flower-dusted roads and sleepy hills, a new chapter begins. One made not of parchment or ink, but crust and glow and bread that once dared to walk. And now you feel the world growing quiet. The leaves outside the ruin stop rustling. Even the fire's hum softens into something closer to a whisper. You feel your breathing slow. Maybe you didn't notice how fast it was before. Now it matches the rhythm of the coals, the stillness of the loaves, the calm of the night. There's no rush anymore. No carts rattling down cobblestone streets. No bakers shouting over the morning dough. Just a warmth that spreads. Not hot, not heavy, just right. You picture the rye, curled up beside the fire, no longer a messenger, no longer in motion, just resting. The bannock hums in his sleep. The barley roll grumbles and adjusts his position for the 5th time. Even Martha, eyes half closed, sits with her hands open beside the flame. And ember she flickers, not because she's dying, but because she's dreaming of bread and stories and soft footsteps in flower-covered kitchens. You lie there, maybe still, maybe not, but gently sinking into the same calm that fills that broken hearth in the woods. You can smell the wood smoke if you try. Hear the old bricks breathe. You're safe here, warm here. And as your thoughts fade like cooling embers, you know, not all stories need endings. Some just burn quietly, waiting for morning, waiting for you to dream again. Good night.